Hey, Herald-Times sports editor Chris Korman here in the press box at Memorial Stadium. It is very dark.
It is. It got dark real fast.
Yeah, lights are out.
Yeah. So I guess we should talk about the game then, huh?
31-28.
31-28. Interesting. It's tough to kind of put this one together, I guess, in the narrative of the IU season, more or less. It's kind of the opposite of what's been happening in the last couple of weeks, as opposed to going up big early and then falling apart late. They went behind early by a manageable deficit, came back.
Yeah, really had
real
it
close,
really
and just couldn't get a stop at the end.
Yeah, kind of got pushed around the first half, and it really seemed sort of like a typical Indiana-Wisconsin game as of late. Just not really be able to stop them, not looking like they had much interest in really trying to stop the run. And Bill Lynch said that he really challenged his team at halftime.
Yeah.
Note to Bill Lynch, maybe a good tactic for other weeks.
For other games,
possibly.
for previous ones.
But really challenged the guys, and he thought they responded with a strong second half, and they did. But, we were kind of walking out of here, and I thought it was sort of anticlimactic. It just didn't. I don't know.
It's strange.
Sort of
there's a couple of reasons for that. I mean, it's one of those it ends. The game ends with the ball in the 30.
Yeah.
With just the clock running out, and
we're not used to it. Not used to it in Indiana anymore.
No, exactly. It's been somebody's trying something at the end of the game somehow, or that, or somebody's just actually kneeling on the ball.
It's been over for a while.
Yeah, it's either been over for a while, or it's coming down to the wire. It was just one of those things like Wisconsin just had to keep the clock going, and that's what they did. I mean, they had a 3-point lead in 4 minutes to keep the ball, and that's what they did. Obviously the key play, the 3rd and 8. Indiana brings the house. Scott Tolzien finds Nick Toon
matched up with Donnell Jones. One-armed Donnell Jones
on an out route for 17 yards, and that ends up being, of course, the clincher, more or less. I mean, they had to get one more first down really to end it, but I guess just the way it ends out, anticlimactic. Interesting game to try to put in perspective, but in a strange fashion, you almost have to say that this was a step up for Indiana.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where we're at. Indiana needs to win out, obviously, to become bowl eligible.
Right.
Goes to Penn State next week, which just lost to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Then hosts Purdue here. And so, there still is some talk of possible bowl game. But you're also at this point where you're starting to look at next season, quite frankly.
Right.
Today I talked to Brian Payton, and it was the typical, you've got 2 games left. You're a senior, and he gave the whole, it's on the seniors now. We need to lead this football team. We need to leave our mark. And you're at that point in the season, so you're really sort of starting to look ahead and trying to figure out, what does this all mean in the big picture? And like you said, it's like, is this progress? And there are people out there who the only progress is a W. That's the only way to measure progress. I think that's a little short-sighted. And since we have to write, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories a week about this team, it doesn't do us much good to have that take on it. We need to be a little bit more nuanced. And quite frankly, it didn't get pushed around the way they usually do. John Clay went out of the game.
That's obviously a big thing to it. I mean, what's his name? Ball obviously had a great game. Was extremely effective, but he wasn't John Clay. I mean, John Clay was averaging 8.9 yards a carry when he went out. I mean, he had 135 yards before he went out with a concussion on 15 carries. It's just gaudy.
Right.
And so basically they were kind of getting pushed around while Clay was in there, and that offensive line pushes around a lot of people because, they're all 315 or bigger, and those are some very, very huge individuals. But they did, come back. And even while they were getting pushed around, they were still getting things done on the offensive end and not necessarily laying down for it. Tannen Doss obviously scores 2 touchdowns, including this huge play, coming back on a ball that Ben Chappell threw that got caught up in the air, coming back to make a play there, and just making sure that, Indiana wasn't out of it going into halftime. Yeah. So, and
and it's Ben Chappell too. Yeah, he had a great day. Great day numerically, but he had the one interception.
Just really bad pick when they were in the red zone.
And just you rarely see it. Ben Chappell doesn't make very many bad decisions. Made a bad decision. Either didn't feel the pressure or thought he had one tick of a second longer than he had, and ends up getting hit and throwing the interception. And it's just stuff like that happens to Indiana. It's stuff like that happens in sports. that's the stuff that happens to teams that aren't used to winning. That
it happens to everybody, but it happens more frequently to teams that are in this position. It just seems Indiana just has one of those somewhere every week, and it's a different guy, it's a different situation. I mean, it could be a circumstance that nobody has control over, but somehow one of those things just happens to Indiana.
Yeah, and you just wonder how it's all going to change, and so much of covering this team is about this constant thought. Okay, how do you fix it? What do you do? And we're constantly asking Lynch. And I asked him that today, and I think he was. I don't know if he's annoyed by it or it just doesn't really. There's no answer.
It's a combination.
You keep working.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah,
a combination. His basic answer is you keep working at it and day by day and sort of. And
that's really Bill Lynch's philosophy on life. But you mentioned it is. I mean that's what I guess that's the only thing he kind of looks at it as if hey, what are you going to do? At the end of the day, you just have to keep going. You can't sit there and try to put it in perspective, and lose time. Just get going forward. But I think what's interesting about trying to put this team in perspective is when you're trying to figure, okay, not so much what is progress, do you view this team as what you are building up towards, or you build up from that? Because you lose a lot from this team, especially defensively. The secondary, which is already having enough problems, is going to get gutted. Right. The linebacking core is going to get hit hard. Both defensive ends are gone. A lot about that defense is going to be lost, and there's offense doesn't get hit as hard, but it's you're not necessarily you lose a couple keys. Roger Saffold, and you don't know if was this really it? Was this what they were building towards? I mean, do you have to look at next year as a season that they're going to take a step back because of all the holes they're going to have? So it's not even so much is this progress, was really this team the one that Lynch should be judged on as the closest thing he's going to have to a finished product.
And I don't know. I mean, that's that's what we'll be covering in the weeks ahead, and trying to talk to people about as we go. Obviously, like I said, they go to Penn State next week. I'm anxious just to see what they have to say. What IU's players have to say this week is, as I said, I think Colin Taylor was actually the one who was saying in the media room that it's on the seniors, and now's the time to step up and really push things. And so I am anxious to see what this senior class's legacy is. Jamie Curlew and, as I said, Peyton before, guys who've been super involved in other things, sort of been these ideal student athletes. And it's just interesting to me because, I went to the Hall of Fame induction last night, and there was so much talk about that. And, of course, those events are celebrations of all that's good about athletics. But, there really is a feeling that at Indiana it's a different sort of caliber of person that makes up the great teams and has sort of always been the heart of what Hoosier athletics is about. And I think that feeling is a lot of places. Obviously, we had, at Penn State we dealt with that, and Notre Dame, but there are just those schools that have that sort of feeling, and I think there's a lot of that to this football team. It's just a question of is that really a huge ingredient in building a great football program, or is it? And then, because we talk to people all the time, and there are people on our chats, and all that's fluff and blah blah, pomp. Yeah. What you need is great football players. You need 230-pound guys who run faster than everybody.
And
else.
also, really, at the end of the day, what it is you need both. I guess it's like when you have.
Well, we solved it.
With that, there it is.
Good work, T.
I know, done. Okay, well, I don't have to cover this team anymore. We're good. No,
that's on the phone.
Exactly, but what it really is you try to get the best players you can and hope you get more than the most out of them.
So then now the question is just where is Indiana on that scale? Where are they as far as having the culture they want, and where are they as far as bringing in the players they want? And that's sort of where we come in to keep covering, and we're just going to try to keep getting better each day. Yeah, that's all we can do.
That's all we can do. All you can do is just keep working.
Each sentence just a little bit better. Hopefully you have a good rest of the weekend. We plan to. Dustin's brother's in town.
He is in town. Watch out, Bloomington. Seriously, watch out.
And photographer Chris Howell's having his annual Howell-ween party. Howell-ween. That's hard to say.
It is.
It's a week late, too, but we were in Iowa.
Yeah, we were in Iowa. So. Our Halloween was my orange tie.
Nice.
An hour to fit.
I like it.
But
I like how you brought back the orange tie.
I did. I was proud of that.
You were. Have a good weekend, guys.
Yep.